So I know I'm a young upstart who's filming in a bedroom, but hear me out. If you've ever looked at Harry Potter character names at all, you'll know that they can be a bit strange. Also convenient. Minerva McGonagall, Severus Snape, and Luna Lovegood, to name a few. But if you look at Fantastic Beasts, things get a lot more amped up because it looks like every single name was picked out with that specific character in mind. Which, they were, but the character's parents didn't know that. I should probably stop trying to break the fourth wall and get into the actual video. I am the Flighty Fairy. I flit from one fandom to another, and right now I will be revisiting the Wizarding World for another Fantastic Beasts video. If you want to watch my other video about who the real villain of the movie is, I will link it in the description. Also, spoilers ahead for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them and The Crimes of Grindelwald. And now, back to Harry Potter. No, it's definitely Newt Scamander. Speaking of Newt, this is probably the most obvious name in the whole movie. It's Scamander, which sounds like salamander, and those are two very similar looking amphibians. Also, we can see that both of these names revolve around creatures, and that's what Newt has spent his life studying. He literally has a case full of Fantastic Beasts, and that's what the whole movie revolves around. So yeah, pretty straightforward. Moving on to Jacob Kowalski. I'd like to start with the last name, which is the Polish equivalent of Smith. If you didn't know, Jacob is actually Polish, from Poland. He immigrated when he was a small child. And this actually ties into the rest of the movie. If you remember when Jacob was in the banker's office, he actually mentions a few Polish desserts by name, saying that it was his grandmother's recipe. But moving on to the first name. Jacob is a prominent character in the Bible. In the book of Genesis, he tricks his brother Esau by making him give up his birthright for a little food, and then later he tricks his father into giving him the birthright that was meant for Esau. Oh yeah, and his sons go on to found the 12 tribes of Israel. You're probably wondering what this has to do with Jacob Kowalski. Actually, the name Jacob means holder of the heel, which reflects how Jacob in the Bible was born holding his twin brother's heel. It also means supplanter, and this is where Jacob Kowalski's first name starts to make sense. Jacob was switched or supplanted with Newt at the beginning of the movie when he switched cases with him and then all the creatures got out. He was later switched with Newt again when Newt took all the blame for everything. So Jacob's name is kind of prophetic in a way because it encompasses everything he does in the movie. And this ties back to Old Testament Jacob because his name basically encompasses everything he does in life. Tina. Tina's full name is actually Porpentina Esther Goldstein. Right off the bat, we see that porpentine is actually an archaic way of saying porcupine, and almost solely used by Shakespeare. Esther is also a biblical name, though neither of these really have to do with Tina's character. But Goldstein. I know that this is supposed to apply to both Tina and Queenie alike, but when you look at the translation, it seems more catered to Tina. Goldstein translates to gold stone, which is actually a very popular Germanic surname. When you think about it with Tina in mind, at first she seems kind of rough and icy, but after you get to know her, she's a heart of gold. This analogy doesn't work perfectly with Queenie, but I have a possible explanation in mind. Queenie's name is derived from the word, queen. This might have something to do with her personality, as she is described as being the most beautiful woman to ever don witch's robes. And she delights in all things feminine. Hence the queen analogy. I had trouble with the Goldstein part because the analogy I used for Tina wouldn't really work with Queenie because Queenie isn't rough and icy. The only thing I could think of was that J.K. Rowling found a good last name for Tina, but then had to give Queenie the same one because they were sisters. So that takes care of the Fantastic Four. On to more minor characters. Gellert Grindelwald. Seriously, how does she come up with names like this? If you go way back in the etymology of the name Gellert, who names their kid that? It can be loosely translated to Spear Hardy from the Old German. Doesn't that just sound like a villain name to you? I mean, I know he's not Spear Hardy, but he's certainly Wand Hardy. Grindelwald literally means Bolt Forest in German. I don't know how those two words apply to each other. The interesting thing about this name, though, is that Grindel sounds a lot like Grendel, which was the monster in Beowulf. Grindelwald is certainly a monster, so if we think of Dumbledore's Beowulf and go with what happened to Grendel, Grindelwald will probably get his just desserts very soon. Like we didn't already know that. I'm just gonna go for it. Percival Graves. Yes, I know we never actually see the guy in the movie, but we know he was a character because Grindelwald needed his DNA for the Polyjuice Potion. Too many people take advantage of Polyjuice Potion, if you ask me. And we can determine some things about him based on what Grindelwald could do without other people getting suspicious. For instance, we know he was a very powerful wizard because he was head of the investigation department at MACUSA, and he used wandless magic frequently. So back to the name. Percival was actually a name used by J.K. Rowling before, if you think of Percy Weasley. And both are members of the magical high councils in their country, by the way. It literally means destroyer in Greek, which can be thought of as how he got to the top position in MACUSA, or just be like another red herring for all the destructive things Grindelwald did while he was impersonating Graves. Graves itself means gravel in French, or it can refer to the place where, people are buried. Another possible clue that the person we thought was Percival Graves actually wasn't, because we all know Grindelwald's obsession with the Deathly Hallows. It also might refer to the cold, quiet, sometimes creepy vibe we get from Percival Graves' personality, which we also know is his because no one said anything like, "Hey, since when have you gotten so creepy?" Of course, we don't really know how long Grindelwald had been impersonating Graves, so it's hard to say for sure. And now we get into the bare bones, starting with Credence. Actually, his real name is Corvus Lestrange, as shown in the Crimes of Grindelwald teaser trailer, but since this is probably not the name he will be going with, I'm going to stick with Credence. Credence is actually a semi-common word in the English language, and I don't know about you guys, but after I saw the movie, I started hearing it everywhere. From dictionary.com, belief in or acceptance of something as true, the likelihood of something being true, plausibility. This actually carries a double meaning. Credence believed in and trusted Graves wholeheartedly until he betrayed him at the end of the movie. Also, the name is a subtle nod to the reveal at the end of the movie. We, the audience, assume that modesty is the obscurial. It just makes the most sense. The most likely to be true. However, it turns out that Credence is actually the obscurial. Spoilers. Meaning that we believed in something to be true and it turned out wrong. Just like Credence's belief in Graves. Man, this name is just like Jacob. It encompasses everything he does in the movie. I won't talk about the last name until we get to the Mother Lord, Mary Lou Barebone. Modesty! I don't know how that relates to her character at all. Mary Lou has a tendency to name her children after attitudes or states of being, which actually wasn't that uncommon in the early 1900s and before. Modesty means the quality or state of being unassuming or moderate in the estimation of one's abilities. Yeah, we don't see her doing anything specifically modest in the film. She does seem to take pride in her singing abilities, though. I had to assume that J.K. Rowling had some reason for using this less than normal name for her character. The only thing I could think of was the issue brought up before, that we think modesty is the obscurial. Turns out she wasn't. She underwhelmed us with her abilities. So, in a way, that's modest, I suppose? So never assume anything regarding people's abilities, kids. I'm not going to talk about Chastity Barebone right now because she's such a small character, it's really hard to connect her personality to her name. She literally only has one line in the film. I've read the original screenplay twice, people, I know what I'm talking about. However, I do think there's more to her character than most people realize, so I might make a full video on her sometime in the future. And now for the last of the bare bones, Mary Lou. Mary is one of the oldest names in history, and is so old, in fact, that we're not really certain what it means. Some theories are sea of bitterness, rebelliousness, or wished for child. I don't know about the last one, but the other two seem to speak pretty clearly of the leader of the Second Salemers. Ironically, the name could also mean beloved or love. Lou is a common middle or second name, and if used alone, is usually short for Louise. This name does not have a direct translation. Barebone, on the other hand, I think we can all agree on that meaning. It speaks to the callousness and strictness of Mary Lou Barebone and how she will not tolerate any misbehavior. Like, literally any. She beat Credence for coming home late. Another character whose name I thought was pretty cool was Seraphina Picquery. The name Seraphina can be found in both English and German cultures, but is actually most commonly a Roman name. Interesting. It literally means fiery ones, which I think is pretty appropriate. Like, she doesn't have an uncontrollable temper or anything, but we do get the impression that she used to, or perhaps it's hidden under the surface. Picquery doesn't have a translation, which is a shame because I really wanted to know what it meant. The closest I could find was the name Pickering, which is the name of a town in Yorkshire, and its root, Pickeringus, is the name of a tribe. I thought this was appropriate for the president because she leads the tribe of American wizards. There's just one more name I want to touch on. Henry Shaw. Both of them, they have the same name. Like, what is it with J.K. Rowling having fathers and sons having the first last name? I mean, Look at Barty Crouch. But back to the Henry Shaws. Henry is Germanic and literally means home ruler, with elements from the word of home and the word for power or ruler. If this doesn't speak to their characters, I don't know what does. Henry Shaw Jr. is literally the Senator of New York. Even his father is a home ruler in a sort of way because he owns the biggest newspaper in the city. Shaw is an English topographic name for someone who lived by a corpse or thicket. Lovely. But this also says something about the Shaws because even though they are very influential and wealthy people, they are not very nice. Anyway, that is all of the major names of all the characters in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and some of the minor ones. I'm actually filming this on 4th of July, so if you hear some weird background noise, that is why. If you liked geeking out about names with me, please like this video, and if you like this channel, please subscribe. Also, if you want to see more of this sort of thing, please leave it in the comments. I might do one of these for the Crimes of Grindelwald. I would like to thank Harry Potter Wikia. They were a big help in this video with their etymology sections on the characters. Also, I used various name origin websites, namely, see what I did there, BehindTheNames.com. You guys should really check it out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Later, FB fans.